NHL panel. We have RotoWire contributors Paul Bruno, AJ Scholz, and NHL.com's fantasy on ice host Pete Jensen.
Wow, guys, I don't know what you did, but we're starting the show with hockey here. So whatever it is, producer Drew is very impressed with it.
Last night.
Yeah, last night. Can we talk about last night? So, guys,
We sure can.
First season in the league for the Kraken, and they will not be making the playoffs. No expansion trip here to the finals, a lot like the Golden Knights, who just so happened to kind of shut them out last night. AJ, what did you learn about the Kraken here in their first season, though?
Well, I learned that they didn't get the benefits that Vegas did when they were able to stockpile pieces and make trades. I think the other GMs heading into the expansion draft just felt like they got completely fleeced by Vegas, and they didn't want to let that happen again. So they basically just said, yeah, Seattle takes somebody, whatever, we don't care. And that's why you saw at the trade deadline, that's when they piled up all their draft picks. That's when they traded away the guys that they had. They brought in a ton of draft picks, and all that stuff Vegas was able to do ahead of the expansion draft. Seattle had to wait, and I don't think we really expected them to be that competitive to begin with. I thought the Pacific might have been a little bit more open than it has been. It's been much more top-heavy than I thought it would be at the start of the year, so there was a chance Seattle could do something, but I think, it just proved that they didn't get as good of a start, a more typical start. Vegas got an atypical start on what they were able to do, and Seattle fell into every other expansion franchise's struggles when they first come in.
All right, question here. Logan Thompson with the shutout. He's a rookie. If I'm not mistaken, he just cracked the top 25 fantasy goalie list on NHL.com. Pete! So, Pete, can Thompson help the Knights hold on to the final wildcard spot?
He definitely can, and I think the impending return of Robin Lehner can be an even better news bit for them heading into, hopefully, the playoffs where everyone expected them to be. Obviously, it's a completely different animal than the Kraken right now because the Kraken got eliminated. They've taken more of a conservative approach to their roster building. They didn't take Vladimir Tarasenko, obviously, which in hindsight looks pretty rough. But, of course, they're going to have Matty Beniers coming in from college, from Michigan eventually. So they're still building in the right direction. I think they've just taken a big different approach than Vegas, who has all this star power and so many injuries right now. But at least I think the Golden Knights are trending in the right direction with their little mini winning streak right now. They're going to have to fend off either the Oilers or the Dallas Stars for a playoff spot. But I think the Golden Knights will be okay because they just got Alec Martinez back. Jack Eichel's playing well with Dadonov and Chandler Stevenson. And Alec Martinez just shores up that defense to a point where it's really going to help whichever goaltender it is. It's probably going to be Robin Lehner as the 1A, but Logan Thompson proven that he's not going away anytime soon with that shutout on the night that Lehner comes up and backs him up. So maybe it lit a fire under the kid. He's been impressive over his past 7 or 8 games, Logan Thompson.
Yeah, for sure. Paul, speaking of goalies here, dude, Maple Leafs are struggling to keep goalies on the ice. Mrazek leaving in the first period of the Leafs game on Tuesday. I mean, they are clinging on to that third spot in the Atlantic as that race kind of just goes back and forth here. Can Kallgren keep them afloat? Like, where are you on the emergency backup call list? That's what I want to know. And I believe there's also a Zamboni driver there, right, in Toronto who can just kind of step into the role if needed.
Well, I just checked to see if my daughter still had her goalie equipment here at the home, and she does. I'm available too if I can fit into those clothes. But the serious issue that the Leafs have in the net is something of a short-term thing. Jack Campbell's practicing with the club. I understand he'll be ready probably to suit up for the next game. So that's the good news on the horizon. Shalgren's acquitted himself very well, but the team has solidified their defense with the arrival of Mark Giordano, Ilya Lyubushkin too, and those are factors that bode well for whoever plays in net for the Leaf team. And I think by the time the playoffs roll around, they'll be just fine in the nets.
Okay. All right. You sound nervous. That's all.
All right. Let's move on to a DFS breakdown of tonight's slate. We got 9 games coming our way. Who's your favorite center tonight, Paul?
Well, at the center ice position, I go all the way to the top because I'm guaranteeing that Auston Matthews will get goal number 50 and maybe a few more points in a matchup against Winnipeg. He had them for lunch last year, and the Jets are going to be without Kyle Connor, who is a menace to Maple Leafs as he is to many other teams in the league, but they're also missing Nate Schmidt on the blue line, and they're going to be throwing a second-string goalie in the nets as well. So it's Shalgren against Comrie tonight is your goaltending matchup. And the teams in front of them, I favor the Leafs heavily. The Jets are on the second of back-to-back games, so that's a pretty attractive invitation to buy into Matthews at 9,300. But if you're skittish about that high price, save some money and go way down the list. You see Nazem Kadri going to play first-line minutes for that Colorado club because Nate McKinnon is out of the lineup. $6,900 his price tag against the San Jose club. They too are on the second of back-to-back, so I like that pick very much. And then finally, Elias Lindholm, the Calgary top-line center. They've been outscoring everybody in the NHL, and he's been a centerpiece to all of that offense. Comes in at only $6,600. Again, a very nice matchup for him against LA.
AJ, which center do you like?
You guys know my favorite thing to do on the show is tell Paul when he's wrong. And it starts with the Nathan McKinnon news. Guess who's playing today? Nathan McKinnon will be in the lineup tonight. That was confirmed by Jared Bednar. And so Nazem Kadri is still a decent play for a value guy on the second line. I think he's still usable, but not quite as valuable when McKinnon's there. And that's who I'm going to go with in this one. $8,700 is the price tag, a little bit cheaper than Matthews. Yeah, sure, he's returning from a one-game absence, but this is a guy that's racked up 10 goals, 12 assists in his last 15 contests. He's nearly unstoppable when healthy. And, oh, by the way, he gets to play at home against the Sharks, who severely disappointed me yesterday. I thought maybe they had a chance to be useful. That was a wrong take. But so if they're not going to be useful on one night, let's bet against them on the second of a back-to-back. Go heavy Colorado, starting with Nathan McKinnon at center.
All right, Pete, where are we going?
I like Dylan Strome. He's a little cheaper, and I think that he has been as valuable as any center in fantasy this month. He has at least a point in 12 of 13 games this month for Chicago. Tough matchup against the Florida Panthers, but hey, the Panthers are giving up a lot of goals lately to teams like Montreal and Ottawa, so why can't they give up 3 or 4 goals regardless of who's starting, Bobrovsky or Spencer Knight, against the Chicago Blackhawks? And Strome, of course, is playing with as good of line mates as you could ask for, Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat. So Dylan Strome, we thought he might get traded before the deadline. He's staying put, and maybe he'll be a part of the Blackhawks rebuild. He's only 25 years old, and he's having a bounce-back season this year.
All right, here we go. Let's go to the wings and things department. AJ, which dude do you want to roster? Looks like the most expensive one. Ooh, Camper's facing your Penguins, dude.
That's probably not a bad idea. I mean, to be perfectly honest with how Pittsburgh's been playing lately, and it's been working for me to recommend, Rangers and everybody else against the Pens. So I don't hate that play, but I would rather go with Teuvo Teravainen. I know he hasn't scored much this past month, just 1 goal in 15 March contests, but he still managed 33 shots and 10 assists over that stretch. He's just 5,200, and you get a fantastic matchup going at home against Montreal. It's such a good spot to find him in, and really, he almost comes in with that level of matchup. 5,200 makes him almost a value play than anything else. So I look for him to break out of that goal slump tonight and get one against the Habs.
Okay, Pete, in the words of TV's Jesse Cofield, are you going to make it rain at wing? You're going to spend up? You're going to spend some cash? Be rich?
Spend up for Kirill Kaprizov tonight for sure. He has a chance to break the Minnesota Wild single-season point record. He's 1 point behind Marian Gaborik from back in the day. You knew that this was a foregone conclusion that he would eventually break that record. But a lot of people didn't think he would expand on his rookie success the way he has. But he got paid in the offseason. He's been delivering, and he's been elevating Matt Zuccarello to a level of production that we've never seen before in his career. Zuccarello's 10 points, over a point per game this year, and Kaprizov is already in the 80s. He's an absolute stud. I would spend up for him against the Penguins.
Okay, how about Pasta, Paul?
You know what? You're reading my notes. That guy, I got a good look at him the other night in a terrible loss for the Bruins. They were embarrassed. I think they're going to come back with a vengeance tonight against New Jersey. And Pasternak had the look of Ovechkin the other night. The way he set up on the power play on the left flank, it's very reminiscent of what we've seen Ovechkin do hundreds of times, and Pasta's right there in terms of the offensive production. 7 goals in his last 10 starts against a Jersey team that is going to give up some shots on goal, and he's poured a ton of them on the net, 49 in his last 10 games played. So I like that pick. I like Alex DeBrincat against Florida. You might say against Florida, they're a powerhouse. They're a powerhouse offensively. They're leaking goals right now, and DeBrincat's been scoring a lot of them. He's been on 15 scoring plays in the last 10 games, 37 shots on goal for him, 6 goals in that stretch. So the Chicago offense will show up, and I think it's going to be a high-scoring tilt there. DeBrincat a good investment at $7,200. And finally, Johnny Gaudreau outscoring the world in everybody except for Mitch Marner over the last 2 months. And with 16 points in his last 10 games played, he gets LA on the second of back-to-backs, and Calgary's going to be ready for that one.
All right, real quick, where can you save some money? Who's going to be a value play tonight, Pete?
I think you can get some value on the Boston Bruins against the New Jersey Devils. I love the way Charlie McAvoy's playing, and you can get a piece of him through Hampus Lindholm, his new defense pair, who was just acquired before the deadline. He'll get you some good peripheral coverage. And yet, in our rankings on NHL.com/fantasy, McAvoy is up to number 5 among defensemen this week. So he's really skyrocketing since that acquisition of Hampus Lindholm. So I think that you're going to want to get multiple Bruins in your lineup. As good as Jersey's offense is, they're probably going to give up a bunch of goals to Boston tonight, especially after how Boston had a rare loss the other day. Swayman got lit up. That team will be motivated. I doubt they'll lose, and I'm sure that they'll probably score 3 or 4 goals at the very least against New Jersey. I think McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm will both be heavily involved.
All right, real quick, Paul, where can you save some money?
Anders Lee's been on a long-time heater, Jesse, and I think that continues tonight against Columbus. I like Anthony Duclair in a second-line role that I think I might even stack that whole second unit in a matchup against Chicago, a high-scoring affair. And then Willie Nylander's in the doghouse a bit in Toronto, and I expect him to do what he's done regularly, and that's produce points at least, 10 in his last 10 games played, 30 shots on goal. He's going to play on the power play too. Don't worry too much about that third-line designation. The PP look is going to be where he scores his points.
AJ, value.
I'm going to look at Carter Verhaeghe for the Panthers to get a share of that. Paul mentioned they've been scoring a ton of goals. He's 4,400. Good opportunity for him to build on what he did on Tuesday. He picked up an assist that broke out of a 3-game point streak. If you're willing to go with my homer pick here, Jason Zucker looks ready to jump back into the Penguins lineup in a second-line role, and he'll cost you just $2,500. So look for him to pair up with Malkin and Ricard Raquel.